Now the CDU is completely falling apart and the SPD wants to take on new debt. Not to give it back to you, but to put it into the budget. That this country can somehow still keep functioning while there are now major protests in the Netherlands. We'll take a look at that this morning, and I can tell you the situation in the Chancellor's office is now at boiling point. If you'd like to support this channel, I'd really appreciate a like and a subscription.
More debt because of the Iran war and the ongoing energy crisis. That's what SPD parliamentary group leader Matthias Mersch is bringing up. He has the task of preventing the collapse of our economy.
Let's be honest, 17 cents have already been eaten up in advance because gas prices were already higher anyway. A state that doesn't care about anything at all here in Germany. What can it do? It can impose new taxes on us and introduce more reporting requirements. It doesn't care at all about how the economy is doing. Now he wants to take on even more debt. And the CDU, they've been involved up to their hair tips so far. Anyone who watched Schuller or Schubert's Lagemeldung yesterday, for example, will see. In the corridors of the Chancellery, in the corridors of the Bundestag, there are already rumors about removing Friedrich Merz, and as quickly as possible. That's my opinion. We'll take another look at that in a moment, and I'm telling you, it's going to get really explosive.
In the worst case, all options would have to be on the table. That also includes declaring a budget emergency and taking on new debt. Union parliamentary leader Spahn repeatedly warned against new debt.
What's your opinion on that? Where would any relief even come from then? How much money would be borrowed? And let's be completely honest. Did you have any significant relief in 2020? I don't mean the relief that you had to pay back later, or where you were really hassled for months that you might have to pay it back after all, or in 2022. Did you have any significant relief? I didn't. Somehow it just kind of passed me by. I don't know, maybe you got showered with money. Unfortunately, I didn't.
Someone said that anyone who categorically rules that out doesn't understand the scale of the upheaval caused by the Middle East conflict.
Many people have said that, including Tim Klusendorf the day before yesterday. If it were to happen here in Germany that pensions would be cut and now the healthcare reform would also be pushed through, that would no longer be possible with the Social Democrats. And those are scenes that I would also like to see in Germany. If the SPD doesn't stop with things like this, just take a look at what's happening right now in the Netherlands. They're simply standing up against the corrupt government. They really stop at nothing to drive people here to the brink of madness. I think you can already see really angry mobs out there on the streets. By the way, I intentionally showed these scenes like this. A lot of people on TikTok are copying me right now, and I know that TikTok really doesn't like that at all. So, not my words, but when people are out on the streets and just screaming, pardon the expression, finally get rid of the assholes. Yeah, then maybe we'll finally have a glimmer of hope in this country. Like I said, I apologize for the words, they're not my own. But that's what's being said on the streets of the Netherlands right now, in everyday language actually. Dear Social Democrats, I'm addressing all of you directly and I'll explain the situation to you. Just resign from this government, give up your money, give up your pensions that you'll receive later, and just leave. That would do all of Germany a huge favor. Like I said, I don't know what your opinion is on this. Mine is definitely clear. Nobody in Germany needs these social democrats anymore who just want to take on debt indiscriminately and then put it into some budget. But like I said, not even the tax reform is getting through because the SPD simply doesn't want it, and now the CDU doesn't want it either.
Yes, and after a heated debate, the Bundestag finally approved the fuel discount yesterday. This is supposed to apply for 2 months starting May 1st. With this, the government wants to lower taxes on gasoline and diesel by about 17 cents per liter in May and June.
Is it 17 cents now, or is it 14 cents? Please explain that to us, because what leading economists are calculating, they're talking about 14 cents. And if you take economists who are not close to the SPD or the CDU, then basically it means yes, oil companies will benefit again. No, the oil companies have already raised their prices anyway. Nothing at all actually reaches the citizens who are now, for example, making demands. Then, okay, maybe the vehicle tax should be reduced. Yes, careful, only right-wing radicals in the Bundestag would claim that. And now they've come together as well, and here too I have to tone this down a bit. The people who are currently talking about how Germany urgently needs relief, they're not allowed to participate because supposedly they don't have anything good in mind for this country. I just can't listen to it anymore. I would definitely be in favor. CDU should immediately kick out the SPD, urgently form a minority government to bring about stability without this chancellor. Not my words, these are also Schuller's or even from Die Welt by now, just to get things back on track here in Germany, to smooth things out a bit, so that we can then move on to new elections. And I hope all of this happens without this wannabe second choice chancellor.
Many thanks for taking over the government. In the past few days, we've heard how Klingbeil and Merzig are already yelling at each other. That probably won't last much longer. Nothing will come of the reforms. They're too far apart. And us with it?
He's not entirely wrong about what he says. Above all, whether there will be a change of government now or whether it will first come about through outside support for a so-called minority government, I would wait and see for now. But in any case, I think it's good that people are even dealing with this topic at all. Based on what we've just learned, it's absolutely necessary to push for a change in politics here, with a party that no longer tolerates simply accumulating debt beyond measure, and that we could never pay back in our lifetime.
We're now systematically looking at what preparations need to be made.
Whether advice from the Austrians,
Schwesterpartei aber nützlich.
well,
Above all, they can learn from it what you shouldn't do if you don't want to completely run a party into the ground, which was the case with the FPO for a very, very long time. What many people don't even know is that this actually led to the split of the party back then under Jörg Haider. And really, I have to say, all those stories that came up back then, and while Jörg Haider was just about to take over the government because he was such a popular politician, a man who never drank had a serious car accident, who by the way also never drove, and yet he went off the road driving himself and drunk. And that was the day the Haider era came to an end.
If such a turnaround were to happen, then of course the AfD would have to accept that this process is accompanied by considerable skepticism.
Before anyone would even dare to take such a step in Germany, I mean, let's be honest, what would happen in Germany then? The leftist mob would basically lay this country to waste. But before that could even happen, it would be absolutely necessary, I'm not sure what your opinion is on this, to at least tolerate a minority government in order to see how the whole thing would work. If they now, if the CDU were to say, okay, we'll kick out the SPD and bring in the AfD, I don't think so. Nobody here wants that. I don't even think that any AfD voters actually want that situation right now. What we want is to stabilize this system and not for Antifa groups to take to the streets, maybe soon even led by Lars Klingbeil or something like that, and really bring chaos and destruction to these streets and, yes, I really have to say it, burn everything down. Nobody wants that, definitely.